Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm back, even though we're in the middle of a hurricane. We've had this happen before, where we've broadcasted during a hurricane and we lost it. So hopefully we're able to go for the full show. Hasn't really hit North Carolina yet, but we'll see. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with Rick David and Maddie B, my co-hosts. And I'm going to jump right into it, into the mailbag, because I feel bad. I got this question a week or two ago. I write it down in my notes. And then because college football started, I had just started texting the guys my notes. And I've never sent this in. So the question for the mailbag this week, Herm Edwards over and under. How many wins? He's already 2-0, so I kind of screwed the pooch here. But Matt, what's your guess? I know we were harsh on him early in the year.
We were harsh on him early in the year, but I'm buying it. Whatever he's selling, I'm buying. I think take the over. I think when you look across the board at the Pac-12, I think he stands a chance in conference to pick up a bunch of wins, and I think that he has a chance with that stud receiver they have to make some noise.
So how many wins would you need to take the over? You think he has 8 wins? Over? Let's use 8 as our baseline.
If I'm using 8, I don't know that he goes 8.
Well, he already has 2, and one's a ranked team, and normally it would be 6 for bowl games, but I figured give him credit for winning.
If you say bowl eligible, I'll say yes.
Oh, well, that's a shoo-in now at this point, I would think. Rick, what are your thoughts?
No, it's not a shoo-in.
I think I got 9 wins for him. So
he's
already beat UTSA. He's got Michigan State, San Diego State 3, Oregon State 4, Colorado 5. I'm going to say the upset of Stanford gives him 6, Utah 7, UCLA 8, Arizona 9. So I'm giving him 9 wins. So I think I'm going to do that. So he'll still lose to USC and Oregon and Washington. So I got him 3 losses.
Wait, isn't the Washington game the Pac-12 after dark game this week?
10:30, yeah. 10:30.
So, I told you guys last week, I was pretty good on this last year. And last week I said, watch that game. Good chance of an upset. Herm Edwards, my boy. Even though I hated on him so much, I just had a feeling that Michigan State looked like so much ass in that first week that Herm Edwards had a chance to make a name for himself, and that's exactly what he did. So, check it out this week. If you want a late-night game Saturday night, that's the game to watch. I think Arizona State's going to make it close. Washington hasn't impressed me. They had a chance against Auburn, and they really could have put them away, and they let them hang around and ended up losing that game. So, I think the bigger thing for Herm Edwards, I wanted to mention so I don't forget, a lot of people were making fun of him for his sound bites after the game. His quote was, he said, everyone thinks that points are the thing, and that's where the game gets away from them, I think. And what he meant was basically clock management. If you go back to the Penn State-Appalachian State game, they went for the points, and Penn State came right back and tied it, sent it to overtime. If they would have settled, instead of looking and seeing, okay, now we're up 7, and just waited and ran the clock out like Herm Edwards was talking about, then they would have won. So you're looking at this. He played it exactly how he needed to play it. And unfortunately, a lot of college coaches just suck at time management for whatever reasons. I mean, to be honest, I think that's why Les Miles hasn't been getting a look. Kansas cannot have any better coach lined up than Les Miles. I mean, there's rumors Kansas could even fire their coach this early. Just get him. Get him. You can't, I mean, if you can get a guy that's at heavy recruiting, and I know I'm getting off topic here, just get him. But Herm Edwards gets it. And I don't think a lot of college coaches do. And I think he's going to upset a lot of mediocre teams like Arizona. They've looked like complete shit. Kevin Sumlin, what a disappointment. And Jimbo Fisher has A&M almost upset Clemson. Your boy, Matt. So, crazy week. We'll get back into college football here in the tail end. Let's hop into high tempo. Rick, what do you got this week?
Mine has to do with 9/11. So obviously today is September 11th. So very historical day for our country, being this is Patriot Day now, and also different events as well happening. So I don't live too far from where actually Trump was in Shanksville. So So where he gave the speech today. So he was at Shanksville. So that's where the plane went down in Pennsylvania. I know they always refer to Pennsylvania. The city of Shanksville it went down in. So, but mine is actually when I was still working in minor league baseball at the time, I was running a scoreboard, professional scorer, doing stats and everything. We lost a guy through the year. He got a job. He was playing minor league independent ball. We lost him throughout the year. He ended up in New York City. He was working at the Twin Towers. So, and the one thing I will always remember about that day was his first phone call. Wasn't to his parents, wasn't to his sister. It was actually to my brother. My brother called him. His first he got out of the Twin Towers. He got on a phone. He called my brother and said, "Tell my people back in the hometown." He was very well loved in our town. He goes, "Let them know I'm okay. Let the city know, let the owner know, let his coaches know." So my brother had to be the one. He called me, then we got a hold of the coaches and everything to let everybody know, hey, John Flack is okay. He made it out of the Twin Towers. So I think that will be a moment that will always resonate in my mind, that baseball and also life have so many times where they come together. I know you're seeing the George Bush memories where he throws out the first pitch, but that one will always remind me because his first call wasn't to his parents. It was back here to a team that he was playing for and would have been the all-star if he would have kept it with the team, but he left and he got the job. So it's kind of tough because a lot of those guys that are playing independent baseball are making not even $500 a month, playing it, and he got the job and he left. He left right after that and went to New York City. So that'll be in mind. It's good to hear, remember John Flack, and that story will always remind me of him. And, remembering 9/11, his first phone call was back to a team that he loved to play for and fans that he loved to play for in an old stadium that sat maybe not even 500 a day. So that's always my mind. Thank you for all the firefighters and EMS workers and everybody that gave the time and day. And one story I always remember is also Steve Buscemi, the actor, who's played numerous bit roles and everything. Actually, before he became an actor, he was a New York City firefighter, and he gave up his acting. He was in New York City doing some acting, quit doing the acting for the day, put his New York, and went back down to help at 9/11 because he was a firefighter. And that's another story that will always remind me too. So if you ever want a unique story, Steve Buscemi was at 9/11 being a volunteer firefighter that day. So,
well, Rick, I don't know how we're going to follow that up, but
I'll tell you how.
Go ahead, Matt.
You go ahead.
I'll follow this up. Thanks, Rick. Guess what? I'm furious at my boy John Gruden. How do you have the balls to go on national TV and say, I got to look and figure out why we didn't have a pass rush? You traded your all-pro linebacker to the Bears. You don't have to look at the film and wonder what happened. You gave the best player that you had away for 2 first-round draft picks. That's what happened. You took a great player, and then you said, nah, I don't need you. Get gone. And then you had the balls to get up on TV and say, nah, I don't know what happened.
Well, the crazy thing was he did it right before the season started. So he was practicing. He thought he had some good players. That just shows you how long he's been out of the game. And, I mean, his last few seasons, I was high on him. Let's be honest. I was hoping he would end up at Tennessee. I think college ball, when you're out of the game, college ball is much slower in terms of player acquisitions and stuff, so you can make an immediate impact like Herm Edwards is doing. So John Gruden coming to the NFL, he starts acting crazy, trading his best player, and look what happens. So...
And here's another thing, too. I want to say this. The 6 NFL new head coaches, 0-6. So great job at hiring some great coaches out there, every team, because nobody won their first week. So.
Hey, wait, what's that other guy?
Hey, it's not easy to win your first week. Shut up, Mish.
Hugh Jackson, dude, 0-1. You don't need a new coach to tie.
I like it. But, hey, 0-6 for the new coaches. All I got to say, 0-6. So tell me about all those great hires. and I'll tell you 0-6.
Well, Matt, I'll give you a shout out too since you mentioned it. You started 0-1, 2 big wins. You're sitting now. You jumped. Actually, Claysburg. Coach Matt has Claysburg up 60 ranks or whatever in the Pennsylvania state rank for football team. So he's jumped 60 spots with the upset over a team in a higher class. So looking good. Definitely a big win. I watched the film. Very impressive how you have your kids set up to come back from, what were they down? Was it 13-0?
Yes.
The comeback, and dude, poised is what I'll say. So that's all on coaching, because normally if the kids get behind, especially in high school, they usually just give up. So definitely wanted to give you a shout out, and looking forward to many more things here this season.
And a big thing with this past week was that we had at least 6 starters out for different reasons, whether violation of team rules or sickness and different things like that. So definitely seeing things from the other side, it's easy to sit here and second guess, Gruden, or when we get to our college football talk, some of the other things. But when you're actually there being the person making decisions, it definitely is a world of difference than playing Monday or Tuesday morning afternoon quarterback.
I know. What did Rick say before your game? He said you were throwing out the entire Harbaugh excuse book before you.
That is correct. You were throwing out the Harbaugh. I got players sick. Players are not here. Players violated the team rules. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're throwing out the Harbaugh big book of lame excuses.
And Rick, just like Harbaugh, he got
next
the
year
win.
Be coming out with my carpal tunnel injury. Come on.
Hey Rick, Harbaugh's outscored their opponents like 80-6 over the weekend. Did you see that?
I also know that he's only 2 wins better than Brady Hoke, or whatever amount of games it is. First 40 games, he's only 2 better than 41. He's 2 better than Brady Hoke.
Hey,
I mean, if
Rick,
I was 2 better than Brady Hoke.
Does your boy James Franklin have a winning record against Hoke?
What?
Does your boy James Franklin have a winning record against Hoke?
I think it's 1-1, actually.
Yeah.
I think it is. I think it's 1-1.
So he's as good a coach as James Franklin, and you're saying Harbaugh's a little bit better?
Yeah, we only got 2 shots. Come on. James Franklin through his first 40 games has looked good. He's looked really good. He could recruit, unlike Bill O'Brien. That's why he's in the NFL. So
I'm following your logic, Rick. I got it.
Yeah. And again, that goes back to our discussion of Patriot assistant coaches. Name me one that's been a superstar. There's mediocre and there's middle of the road, but no.
Wait, hold on. What about Mangino? Was he a Belichick guy?
Mangini? Eric Mangini? Are we talking about the Jets coach?
No, who's the guy that was at Kansas?
The big Kansas guy. Mangino. He was in the Stoops tree. He took over when the Pirate left.
Never mind then. I was thinking he was around though at the same time as Charlie Weiss. And he was the other big college hire, but I'm wrong.
Yeah, it was Eric Mangini. Mangini, the old Jets coach, was, and he had a good 2 or 3 year run, and then he fell off the.
2 similar names. Don't name yourself the same.
Kirk
as
Ferentz.
Coach.
I'll throw Kirk Ferentz in there. He's done well for himself since leaving Belichick.
Matt, he coached with Belichick at the Browns, didn't he? It was like 100 years ago.
Guess what? He coached with them. It counts.
Hey, then you better not be denying that Willie Taggart Jim Harbaugh connection if he gets that turned around. All right, let's get into the Steel City update. Rick, do you have anything on the Pirates? Because I have absolutely given up on them.
Yeah, we beat the Reds. We swept the Reds. Thanks, Reds, for being on the schedule. By the way, and the weirdest thing ever, they got a game postponed during the Marlins series, which would have been the Sunday game, which was a getaway day. So the Pirates get to add an extra day to their season because on October 1st, the Marlins have to come to Pittsburgh and play a game.
Wow.
So our season gets added by one official calendar day. And they haven't set a time yet for the game, which is hilarious because you're going to have people coming on Monday trying to figure it out. But that game is need to be played because of draft picks. So we got to figure out the draft order because both Pirates and Marlins have a chance at getting high up draft picks. And it could come down to a game difference, which is really weird. It hasn't happened like that.
Well, hold on, Rick. Don't they have to lose?
Well, the one of the teams is going to have to lose. I don't know how,
Yes.
but one of the teams
Call
has
me
to
up.
figure out
I'll
to
pitch
lose.
a game. Do you have to be on the roster like early?
You have to be on the 40-man roster right now.
I'm in better
so
shape than Bartolo Colon. He's still getting deals.
Oh my. I'm not even going to argue that one right now. But yeah, so that's one funny, weird story. So if you're looking for something to do on Monday, October 1st, I strongly recommend there's going to be a Pirate game against the Marlins. Major League Baseball.
That's weird. Let's talk about the Pirates because that jogged my memory. I did have one thing. I thought for sure they were going to cancel the game on Saturday. But that greedy Bob Nutting had to play that game because he knew people might be double dipping for the Penn State game.
Mm-hmm.
It almost messed up the whole
giving out a
tailgate.
bobblehead. They gave out a bobblehead too.
Who was the bobblehead? McCutcheon.
Felipe Vasquez. Vasquez. It probably said Rivero on the bobblehead, by the way, too. So check it out. Make sure. But yeah, they had to give away a bobblehead. Come on.
That's crazy.
There was nobody at the game. Look at the pictures online.
I have Jeff's feedback because Jeff was there tailgating. He's been pointing out if you're subscribed to us on iTunes, I highly recommend, if you're not, to check it out. Go to iTunes or Stitcher or what's the other one? Google Play and follow our show because Jeff was doing extra videos on our YouTube if you're not subscribed to that. And I put him out as podcasts. And he was actually tailgating from the game, tried to do some live videos, but it was raining so much that I don't know, did they play that Pirates game on time? He had trouble getting a parking spot at the tailgate. I know that for a fact. And then
I think they played it on time, but they ended it early, though.
Yeah, there was complications with the rain, the Pirates game, which they had set up to double dip, and I think they do that every time. It just doesn't make sense. Why are they the only city to do that?
I blame that more on the city more than anything. I mean, it stinks that you have two teams that share the same parking lot. They're not on different sides. It's not the city of Pittsburgh is accessible but not accessible. I mean, with the rivers cutting up through the town, it's tough because you could park on one side of the river, take a boat, and get to the other side.
True.
It'll save you actually some money. You could park on the other side. I mean, it's tough. I mean, also, one of the main arteries to get into the city of Pittsburgh is going through a tunnel. They shut the tunnel down to one lane, so it was just a fiasco all around. So that's why I stayed and decided not to go to the game. I mean, tickets at one time earlier that week, I think it was Tuesday of last week, for that game, the Pitt-Penn State game, were $254 on StubHub. The day of that game, they fell to $54, I want to say. So the lowest ticketed price. Because people saw it was a fiasco to get to, can't park, can't find anywhere. And then the rain came, so that was even worse yet.
You know who had the last laugh? The Pitt Panthers ticket office for all those Penn State fans that bought season tickets.
Yeah, but they could still sell. I mean,
Rick, those are going at a loss. Let's be honest.
well, you sell every ticket for $10, you'll still make out in a way. Because
I would be surprised if people could sell tickets for $10. What were they going for last year when we looked? That Miami game was like $2, and Pitt beat them.
Yeah.
That might have been 2 years ago, though. I can't remember.
I think it was 2 years ago, not last year's. Last year's, I think, was going for like 15.
Well, what an increase.
I know. Hey, that's like a 3,000 increase or something.
Let's
If I
go
could do
ahead.
math.
We'll get
Like
back into
30,000.
college football here. We'll give our thoughts on the game, but let's get into the Steelers now. Steelers tied the Browns, and after the game, I thought, well, I should really be mad at this, but I really wasn't. So I'd like to get your guys' thoughts. Matt, what do you think after that game?
It was sloppy all around. I was surprised at how well James Conner played. I thought with his catching out of the backfield, with him running, I thought he did everything that Le'Veon Bell could have or should have been doing. And I think if he continues to play that way, it may press Le'Veon into ending his holdout and getting back with the team, because if they can continue to move the ball and do those things, I definitely think that the future's bright for him. I also had to laugh because there's the same people who complained for how long about Todd Haley and his screen passes, and third and long, towards the end of regulation and into overtime, what's Pittsburgh doing? Throwing quick screens and all the same crap that they were complaining about. I was dying. It was like, so we needed a clamor to get rid of Haley and we basically promote the guy who's doing the exact same thing.
Well, it's not even a promotion. It comes down to the quarterback. At this time, Ben's going to run the plays that he knows. It's sort of like Peyton Manning when he did the big free agency thing. Everyone knew what offense they were getting. It wasn't like he was going to run out and start doing all kind of crazy like option plays out in Denver. No, he ran basically the same exact offense. And that's what the Steelers are at. Doesn't matter what guy you put out there that's kind of working on the spacing and different wrinkles in your route running and stuff. You got the same basic plays. He knows what he's comfortable with, and he's going to go with it. I think any veteran quarterback ends up playing in their system throughout their whole career. Even Brett Favre. Remember when he went to the Vikings and he brought that run and gun style? Like one of the first games I remember, I think he beat, was it the 49ers? He ran around crazy and threw like a bomb in the end zone. Just unbelievable that the Vikings, of all teams, they run that style for what, 1 or 2 years when Brett's there, and then they're back to the old Vikings this year. Ground and pound. It's like, all right, well, we had our little fun there. So Ben's the same way. Once he's gone, or if he goes down, you'll start to see the new offense whenever a new quarterback gets in. That's whenever they're impressionable. So maybe that's why they brought him in. I don't know. Rick, what did you think of the game?
I thought it was complete garbage. It proved to me a couple things. Play calling's awful. It doesn't matter who's the offense coordinator is. It's Big Ben's stupidness. You can't stand back there for 48 years and think that nobody's going to be coming. Your offensive line can only hold a guy for like 12, only a couple seconds because those guys were rushing pretty quick. Connor played great. Antonio Brown and Schuster were there on the field, but they didn't make that much of a difference. Jesse James has got to learn how to catch a ball. And took too many stupid penalties as usual. And Mike Tomlin outcoached himself. It's that easy. He lets the guys run around the neck stupid, and that's what it is. And it's like, come on. TJ Watt had a great game, too, on defense. But Bud Dupree, gone again. You might as well, put him on the side of milk cartons. I think he was been missing for years since he was drafted in the first round. He looks like the apprentice for Jarvis Jones. Where the hell are they now award? If you expect to do this against Kansas City, it's not going to happen. If you play that way against Baltimore, chalk it up as a loss. You stop the run, but Tyrod Taylor was able to run out so many times. It wasn't good. So even when you got guys in coverage, you're gone. And it shows you how much that defense depends upon Joe Hayden. Because when that offense saw that he wasn't there, they picked him apart. So Joe Hayden, Seafold's not there. Ben's now questionable. DeCastro's now questionable. Who knows with Joe Hayden? So,
I thought DeCastro was out. Didn't I give you guys that update?
Is he out now? He was questionable.
Let's look and see. You can keep going. I just wanted to make sure that we got to
No, I'm good. They proved that they deserved a loss, but they got a tie. So,
yeah,
but you're not good.
DeCastro has a fractured hand. So, I don't know if he's going to play. Like, as a guard, it's going to be tough to play with that. It's not like an arm or something where you can throw a cast on. You basically need your hands to grip onto the chest plate. That's kind of how you block now by holding. Like, let's be honest. So, I just don't see him playing with a broken hand. He's probably out, 8 weeks? 6 to 8 weeks? That would be my initial guess. I don't think they actually ruled on it, but Tomlin did come out at the press conference. He said Ben Roethlisberger's injuries were just bruises. Well, no shit. He was all over the ground because he was running around, holding on to the ball, and then just throwing in the coverage. He threw 5.
And when
how many picks did he have? 5?
5. No, 4. 3. 3 and 2 fumbles, or 3 and 1 fumble?
I forget. I must have blacked out when he had the fumbles. I know he had 2 to Denzel Ward. I thought that was a reach pick. Maybe not. I don't know if that was a great game by him or if Ben just doesn't remember what he's doing out there. So, Browns should have won. I think anyone watching knows that they should have won. If you want to get into the Todd Haley calls, Browns were 30 seconds left in the game. He has a guy throw a deep pass and it gets intercepted. Like, why do that? You have the whole field with 30 seconds left. You only need 10 yards. Run a crossing route or something that you were known for in Pittsburgh and pick up the yards and win. Then they had their field goal block. Was that TJ Watt?
Yes.
So...
Well, I think that's why he was trying to push for it to get closer, because they had the block earlier in the game.
Well, no, that interception was before overtime. That was regulation. Like, they could have won in regulation. The Browns pulled a Browns and basically took the game away from themselves. Steelers, I don't know what was going on. The NFL stupid tackle rule. Why didn't Ben get flagged? And this is coming as a Steelers fan. When he fumbled or threw an interception and he tackled Jabril Peppers down by the goal line, and they had wondered why it wasn't a fumble for a touchback through the end zone, he caused that fumble by leading with his helmet. Isn't that exactly what the new rule is? And then the NFL put out a press release after the weekend's games, and they said, look, we only had one new penalty called. Well, no shit, if you're not going to call it because you're worried that everyone's going to hate it, then why even have the penalty? If you lead with your helmet, which he did, the helmet hit the ball, caused a fumble, call it. But they can't. They could never eject Ben. Actually, Steelers might have won if Ben was out.
There you go.
Well, I don't know. What do you think, Matt? You're a coach. Like,
you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly the reason why as a moneymaker, you handicap a team like Pittsburgh by taking away their best player for a hit like that. It'll never happen.
It would never happen, and it's bullshit. And now, as any defensive player, and I'm surprised more commentators like Ray Lewis or some of the guys that play defense didn't call it out. And maybe they did, and I just didn't get to see it. But that would be my initial reaction. If you're going to call it for random plays, I think what was the only one called whenever Andrew Luck was sliding and he got hit in the head? Is that the one? Because there were a couple other ones that were highly questionable.
Oh yeah. Oh, he got smashed.
Yeah, I think that was the one that they called, but of course they were protecting him. There was another one. Was it in the oh man, I'm drawing a blank here. But there was another one where a defender went up high, launched, and then they waved it off. And if you leave your feet to launch, it should be the flag.
It was the punter.
Yeah, that was the old flag. If you left your feet and you launched up, it should be the flag, and they kind of pulled it back. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, you can't lie to us by saying you're making the game safer and then just not call it. Everyone's going to think that the refs are fake, like in the NBA. And then they're not going to watch for that reason. So, I don't know. I guess the ratings are up. Let's continue with the NFL quick before we transition here.
With the NFL stuff real quick,
go ahead.
I saw a stat that stood out to me. There were 255 penalties assessed during the opening weekend. It's the second most flag-filled weekend since 2007. So the average was about 15.9 for 140 yards assessed per game. So looking at people, it goes back to a point that we made earlier, where if you're trying to oversaturate the rules and try to overly protect players, and that's the way that as a league you justify it, then that's what you're going to see, really sloppy games where you're going to have scores play out the way Pittsburgh's did, because you're dealing with teams playing in these predictable situations.
Oh, 100%. And the flags were annoying. What was it? Was it the Bears game? Bears-Packers? Where one team had like 100 yards in penalties at like halftime?
Yes.
It might have been a different game. But you're watching the game, and when you're seeing that many flags, I just kind of start to tune out because you're listening to them explain why there's all these flags, and it's just a sloppy mess. Clean some of it up. Have the games be fun. You want to speed up the games, that's how you speed up the game. Everybody knows it. Take some commercials out. Don't throw as many flags. Boom. Like a magic wand, the game will cut out 30 minutes of time. Because till you do a flag and then you do a replay, it's just a mess. Because now every flag gets its own replay. by the same guy. Just have a guy call it down from the booth. Why are we having the guy run under the hood? I don't understand it. But that game, I'm always tough on Aaron Rodgers. And he led a comeback, but I don't even know if that counts as a comeback because what were the Bears doing after halftime? It was like, we got this one, boys. Let's go out there, and as long as we do everything right, or barely do anything, we'll win. They lost by, 1 point? It was outrageous. Mitch Trubisky, garbage. I don't even know. The only quarterback from these younger quarterbacks that I think actually look good, and I hate to say it, could be Sam Darnold, especially from the rookies. I know Mahomes was good. I don't know how quite old he is, though. But, man, Sam Darnold and the Lions are back to the old. We talked about Bill Belichick's coaches, Matt Patricia. What was he doing? The Jets said that he had all of his signals the same as when he was at the Patriots, so they knew all of the plays. Because I read some reports where they were saying Matt Stafford was really blatant with his calls, with his hand signals, that kind of Tom Brady was able to hide them. But they said it's the same exact hand signals. So they knew every play he was going to run. How do you do that? How do you do that as a coach? What if you played the Patriots? It's like you're running practice. And he was supposed to be the savior. Everyone thought that was an awesome hire. But if that's if the Jets, because let's be honest, are the Jets even good? What did they have, 2 wins last year? To lay a smackdown like that, they had to have known the plays. At least they were honest about it. I mean, you play in the same division as the Patriots, so they face them twice a year. For how many years was he within New England?
Well, he is up there with Darnold is up there with Favre and Jameis as successful quarterbacks that threw a pick 6 on his opening play.
Well, we'll see. Isn't Jameis even out? Isn't he suspended?
Yes, and a beard. Fitzpatrick lit up the friggin' Saints.
I know. And now is Jameis going to have a job? Like, it's so crazy this year for quarterbacks. The ones that you would think would be mediocre have been tearing it up. I don't even know how to explain it. And then you have Derek Carr throwing picks, and then him and John Gruden trying to explain why they threw the picks. Just crazy. I don't know.
They threw the picks because they couldn't get a pass rush on defense.
Exactly.
It's just going to be... I don't even know what to think of this year. It's only week 1, though, so we'll get back later into week 2 stuff. Get a little bit better of a feel for the year. This year started off so weird with the delay last Thursday for the Falcons-Eagles. And then that game, Matt Ryan still cannot score. If you get down to the end zone, bro, how about you try something a little bit different? I don't want to see the Eagles win anymore. Like, come on. Cut us a break, Matt Ryan. Not good. So, anything else you guys have for the NFL before we move on?
That angered me watching the Falcons' red zone offense. There's that many weapons, and to stall out is just embarrassing.
I hate it because some teams always get down there and then they become a shell of themselves. Like they don't have a receiver that can stretch. Like they only throw fades. It's like, what are you doing? You have these dudes that you know can make a play. Just throwing a fade isn't a smart play or anything unique. Like, why does no one have their great receiver cut to the outside, like if Santonio Holmes in that Super Bowl for the Steelers? They should do that more often. If you have a Julio Jones, have him do a choice route instead of just a fade every time. If you only throw the fade every time, the defense is going to know that it's only going to be a fade. You have to have him run some option routes where he's going to run a slant or he's going to run an out or whatever. You got to mix it up. But I mean, I know what the Falcons are going to do. So it doesn't make any sense. So.
I think we hit the nail on the head. There's lack of creativity with the offenses. And when you have zero creativity, you have tons of turnovers and you have teams that have like people who just watch TV all day who could get your patterns and everything. They know everything. So you got to think outside the box. And if you don't, you're done, and it's just, you wonder why there's so many penalties, because these teams, outthink themselves, and they're too stupid to not think like, oh my gosh, this team may blitz us now because we don't have an idea what we're doing, or we're going to do the same 5 lame plays. I mean, and then you go and you see teams like the Bears and even the Steelers to a certain degree. They were calling like a fourth quarter, like we're up like 35 points, and we're just going to run like a low tempo, hand the ball off twice. They already know it. They got 8 guys in the box, tackle it. And then we're going to throw a 5-yard pass because apparently they know that we're going to try for the first down, but they'll leave the guy open for 5 yards, and then we got to punt. Lack of creativity. I mean, it's just that. So it's like nobody has creativeness on an offense. Has nobody ever played Madden? Come on.
Well, you lost me there with the Madden thing, but you had a good point there at the beginning. I think it's the coaches protected themselves, because the Falcons coach can go back and say, hey, we tried to get the ball to our best player, Julio Jones. We thought he could make a play. But in reality, he's not setting him up to succeed. How many times do you have like Larry Fitzgerald, who's able to go across the middle near the end zone and make a touchdown play? Or some other breaking route where he has the defense come in, and then you have a slot guy back when they had Steve Breston or whoever. You cut out, and then you have like some type of mesh route. But when you're just throwing fades, it just doesn't make any sense to me that you're not trying to win. So at that point, the Steelers try to do it sometimes, but not to the extent. I just don't know. Be more creative. The Browns, if they would have, instead of running that route, if they would have tried something over the middle, they most likely would have won in regulation. And I'll leave it at that. So we'll see. We just need a better Ben. I honestly don't even care if Bell shows up at this point. Whatever. He is in a club in Miami, hanging out, so you can stay there. Maybe the Dolphins will sign him. They're used to head case running backs when they sign Ricky Williams.
Traded.
Whatever. Bringing him in. Doesn't matter how he gets there, Rick. Crazy is crazy. All right, next topic I threw in. Dude, we never talk about tennis, but I had to throw this in. I
wonder why.
To break up football. And I'm going to butcher this name. Jesus. Serena Williams lost to, is it Naomi Osaka? We'll see.
Sure.
We'll go with that. And what happens? She gets upset. Rick, she's already lost the first set 6-2. So she's down. The coach is giving her coaching on the court, which for some reason, and again, I don't watch tennis, is illegal. As a coach, you're not allowed to coach, which means what is your job?
That means I need to start coaching tennis.
I know. I want that job. And then after
get a good seat for the game or match.
He after the game, they said, "Hey, what did you think of that penalty where they said you were coaching?" He flat out said, "I was coaching." He said, "I've been coaching for years. They never called it on me." So is it a cheat or not? I don't even know what to think, because the guy has some balls to just say that. And I'll leave it at that. So they get that penalty, and what happens next? She smashes her racket. They give her a second penalty, and I guess if you're down, if you get 3 penalties, they
it's like baseball, 3 strikes and you're out.
They knock you a point or a game, whatever they call it in tennis. And so she just kept arguing with the linesman over and over about. I watched it. She threw out a line about how she had a daughter and how it wasn't fair. But she was the one that smashed the racket. The coach admitted to cheating. I mean, if that's the rules, that's the rules. Can't say I agree. I do say I want that job. But you go ahead and I don't even know. You get the 2 penalties against you, and then you just complain and complain and complain. It's like Bobby Cox wondering, hey, how come they threw me out again? If you're doing it all the time, you know the consequences. So I think she thought that she was just a bigger star and they would never penalize her. Well, they said about the Super Bowl and everything. Once you're in a big stage, they're never going to throw that flag, the game winning, flag or whatever. And that's what they did. They took a point from her. She was already down. She was down. I think that game might have been tied 4-4, but she lost the first set. And then, of course, after that, she's throwing a fit on the court, and she's defeated. But everyone made it all about her and about how she was a woman. That's why she got the penalty. And I just don't buy it. What do you guys think of that?
I don't care. I don't watch tennis.
You don't think that...
I mean, I think it's another...
Go ahead, Matt.
But I think it's one of those stories that it's so uncharacteristic of her. Or maybe it is characteristic of her, but I don't watch tennis. But it just seems like for what the media tries to portray her as, it seems like they're trying to make something more out of us than what it needs to be.
I think they're... Okay, so she lost yet a penalty. How come you're not talking about the new champ? The champ was supposed to be on the United States tennis team, but they told her that she wasn't good enough. And because she's half Japanese, the Japanese team, Japan or wherever, took her in. They're like, yeah, sure, come play for us. And now she wins a U.S. Slam. So kind of a knock on our U.S. tennis team that you have a young player up and coming. They talk about how there's no good young players in the United States, blah, blah, blah. They're not pushing in high schools anymore. And then you turn one away? Doesn't make any sense. I think that she gets more than a benefit of the doubt. And I'll be honest, no one really talks about it, but most likely she's on roids or PEDs at the very least. Because the stats, she was never tested in 2 years, 2010 and 2011. And whenever the drug tester showed up, the famous incident, she called 911 and had a panic attack. But of course, the media doesn't talk about it. They talk about my man, Barry Bonds, like he failed a test. He never, ever locked himself in a room and had a meltdown. So she definitely has a history of doing things like that. Having meltdowns, whatever. I just don't even know. But it was a top story, and to break up some football talk, I figured I would throw it in there.
Did she marry Keyshawn Johnson, or did they just date?
Rick, how would I know that?
I don't know. I remember she was dating Keyshawn Johnson. I couldn't remember if she married him or not.
Rick, you're the TMZ guy here.
I know. I should know this answer, and I'm very disappointed in myself. I'm going to go Google that right now as we speak.
I'll be honest, Rick. For some reason, I think she has something to do with the guy that made Reddit.
The guy that made Reddit? Okay.
Because after this incident, the rumors were that he was furiously deleting any negative post about her. So take it for what it's worth. That's what I saw on the Twitter anyway. So is she married to him? And I don't think that's Keyshawn Johnson, so that would be no.
No.
We got a fan comment that they dated. So
they did date for a while, like 2 or 3 years, because they were at ESPYs together.
Is Keyshawn Johnson, is he on ESPN?
What?
Is he still doing commentating on like ESPN or wherever he was?
He's still on ESPN's morning show.
I don't know. Very interesting because I always want to see what the media does if you're actually a member or, like you're saying, dating a member. They're definitely going to be 100% softer on you. So, weird. You look that up and let us know. Let's get into, we'll go with another weird story. Getting into Big Ten football. Did you guys see this? I think I sent it to you, but it might have been right before the show. Northwestern head coach Pat Fitzgerald said the RPOs were like communism in football. And he said there's no place for it. So as a coach, Matt, why do you think he would say something like that?
I have no idea. I think it levels a playing field for certain people. And if you're creative enough to be able to incorporate them into your offense or be smart enough to take them away as a defensive coach, I think it's beneficial. I think it's ironic that Northwestern's one of the teams that the modern spread evolved from. You know, when I believe their quarterback was Wheeler, it was early in the spread days when Rich Rod was still at West Virginia that where he was spread run. Northwestern was another one that it wasn't spread to pass. It was spread them out and then have design quarterback runs. They were one of the top programs that were doing it as well to become competitive.
Yeah, they were.
I think it's a bit ironic.
Well, I would say his argument against did have some valid points. He was calling out the lineman downfield because the rule is you can't go 3 yards. And
yes,
if you're doing an RPO, I 100% agree with him. The refs never call that. To be honest, I watched how many games, college football games this year already. It's been 2 weeks, and I did not see one illegal lineman downfield flag. So as a defensive coach like he is, he has a valid point. Because
but I'll say this.
It's almost, there's no way that if a guy's running and then he throws last minute, Matt, that there's not a guy downfield.
Oh, you're absolutely right. But, I look at 2 of our games, for example. There were times where the officials were telling our players, hey, you're close to getting penalized for lineman downfield. And my answer was the same. Did we get called? Did the penalty come out? I said, I'm going to keep doing it until they throw the flag. And once they flag it, then we'll adjust our rules accordingly.
Matt, that's a very Urban Meyer take you had there.
It is what it is. Raider rules, baby. Just win. But I think I liked one of the takes from the old Raiders in the 70s where they said, each game has its own rules, and I think this is more so the take that applies is when you look at what these refs, a lot you see like Brady and Rodgers, they have these really good relationships with the officials because they've been in the league so long and they've seen these same officiating crews that through media timeouts and different stuff, they're around these officials all the time. They know which officials are going to call which penalties, and if you know they're not going to call certain ones and you happen to take advantage of that, then that's the game within the game that you have to understand and know which crews you can get away with stuff and which ones you can't.
True. Rick, do you have thoughts on this, or were you distracted by your TMZ research?
I did do TMZ. It is the guy from Reddit.
What's his name?
Nicholas Hammond. He's the one of 2. And no idea. That's what the UK Mail.
Never would have guessed that.
But the thing is, here's the way I look at it. When you look at these run pass options and other things, they're trying to add new wrinkles into the game. They're trying to add something that's a little bit different. And I agree with going with stuff that's different. If it's not flaggable, go ahead and go with it. If you don't like it, sucks to be you. You either got to figure out how to stop it or you got to join the crowd. I mean, look at one thing. I mean, option at one time was only a college thing. They tried bringing it to the pros. The pro defenses are so much quicker and everything. They read it. Option was pretty much, they use very, very little. It's maybe a trick play once in a while, you'll see. But that's it. Think about, here's the other thing. You remember the Wildcat? Everybody's like, oh, that's illegal, that's wrong and everything. Wildcat. Remember when Miami brought that? Everybody was doing Wildcat. Then all of a sudden, everybody was figuring out, just load them up in the box and just charge right at them when they do it and make them pass to beat you. But I mean, it's those different little wrinkles. I agree with doing it. You need something different. If this is a way to do something different, go ahead and do it. I mean, tired of the same old offenses. You got to do things differently if you want to make yards. Players are getting bigger, faster, and quicker more than ever. You got to do something. I mean, if you know you got a slow team, if Matt's playing a team, hey, these guys are slow. These guys aren't as quick as the team we played last week. You're going to try to burn them with passes down the field. You're not going to say, no, we're going to do short passes. No, they're a slower team. They're already going to be in those spots. You're going to burn them downfield. You got to figure out how you can beat teams, burn teams, get the yards and everything. Hey, these guys can't stop the run. Let's just run nonstop at them. Come on.
I think it comes from...
Don't hate the player, hate the game. Hate it.
I think it comes from the perspective, as Matt said, their team was one of the first ones to do it. And I think the difference is now is a different blocking scheme, because I think he mentioned, this should be a recent video, they just played Duke, which is kind of weird that he would bring it up after Duke, because what I'm going to describe isn't Duke. But when Northwestern first started, they did a lot of the chip protection where the linemen would take a dive. So they knew they would take a step and then dive, basically causing a pile up at the line of scrimmage, and then they would read the linebacker or the defensive end, whichever side they were running at. Because normally you run at the strong guy, and he either commits or he doesn't, and then that's what you base the option off of. If he drops back, that's whenever you can have a little bit more room to run. If he charges right at you, you might dump a pass over him, whatever. Whenever they started to not call it, teams didn't have their guys take a dive, kind of like a chip block or whatever. You see the option teams do it a lot. Everyone always says, like, oh, the chop block's coming. Look out for it. It's going to hurt us. That's basically what he was doing. Now you have dudes like on Alabama and Clemson, because whenever they started to not call the downfield block, these teams with bigger, stronger athletes, now you have a lineman that's 300 pounds that can run a 4.7 40 that's able to hold his man for a couple seconds and then sprint downfield and take out a linebacker. Teams like Northwestern, they don't have linemen that can do that. So it basically nullifies their whole offense. And the teams that recruit well, and they add that wrinkle in, I think that's where you lost a lot of parity in college football. If you go back 10 years, how many other teams were winning? Illinois was winning the Big Ten with Juice Williams, and they're a similar style of offense. Now, how many teams beat Ohio State once they got those horses in and they run the same thing where they chip downfield and have the linemen run downfield and block? Almost no one. Same with Clemson in the ACC. Outside of Florida State, has anyone even come close? No one. Alabama even, in the SEC. No one in the SEC is even really close besides Auburn. I mean, Georgia, you could say last year, but that's 1 year out of how many years? So once these bigger schools got their bigger recruits doing the same style and the rules kind of got pushed a little bit, you can't compete with that. There's no way.
Well, I think the one thing that you got to look at too with these schools is what can you recruit when you're in Alabama, and I say this knowing that they have they've evolved to a spread scheme because Saban was sick of officials not calling penalties on the RPOs. Ole Miss had burned them a bunch of times on linemen downfield in late throws that he said, well, if the officials aren't going to call it, then I'm going to install it into my own offense. And he just kind of took that and ran with it. But, you know, there's teams like Alabama that when you recruit at the level that they are, it doesn't matter what you run. You could line up in a power eye and still potentially beat teams just because you're that much bigger, faster, and stronger. But for the people, you know, and I look at my own team as an example of this. If we were to line up in the eye, we would be 4-7 like we were, you know, for a solid decade. You can't consistently churn out the big lineman, that stud running back that you can give the ball 30, 40 carries to and just have him just swing, you know, carry the rock over and over again. A lot of teams can't do that consistently year in and year out. And so you evolve to a spread because it gives you a chance to get some guys in space and make some plays.
Oh, I think 100%. But once other teams adjusted, there's really nowhere for the smaller teams to go now. You can't go more spread. You go back to running the option. To be honest, that's like what some of the wrinkles were. That was the wrinkle Michigan State threw in against Utah State. They went back and ran an actual option. So you throw in some wrinkles like that because you know that if they're shutting down your spread because they face a bigger, faster, stronger version of it, the RPOs or whatever, it's just kind of outrageous. So I don't know. But something to keep an eye on going forward. Really for the Big Ten, I think that not really much. A lot of cupcakes this past weekend, except for Pitt, Penn State. Rick, you want to get into it?
No, I mean, I loved it. I mean, here's the thing I love the most about it. I'm listening to Pitt Homer radio. Okay, I'm listening to Pitt Homer radio, and all the radio, it's all Pitt homers. They're like, oh, Pitt's gonna win 43-19. I'm like, okay, I don't know how you get these scores with your math. I'm like, oh wait, Pitt fans. And then I was and they're like, Penn State's afraid, and that's why they won't sign the contract. No, it's because we don't need you, and we just proved we don't need you anymore because we don't need you to sell tickets. You need us to sell tickets, obviously, because Penn State sold the place out. And they played terrible. The third-string quarterback even threw for a touchdown. The third-string quarterback. Because the second string's injured, so the third stringer had to come in. I mean, Pitt had a good game plan. It was figured out quickly. You can't pass the ball, Pitt. You can only run. We're throwing 8 guys in there. Best of luck trying to beat us on the run. You couldn't because you're not quick enough and you couldn't get off the blocks quick enough. Givens played a heck of a game. See, I told you that. Remember that fact I told you last week? Givens was out. Givens was in for this game. Shut down the run. Pickett or whatever, Kenny Pickett's charge, he was terrible. He couldn't pass. He couldn't pass over that. Pickett's charge, it reminded me a lot of that. But he couldn't pass over that. And then they brought the JUCO transfer in. He couldn't pass. That's what it is. And here's the funny thing. And I know I've already heard Pitt Homer Nation, and I know we'll probably have elements for the mailbag next week. I don't want to hear you cry that the referees were from Big Ten. You signed the contract that said Big Ten referees. I don't want to hear the fact that it was raining. It rained for both teams. And I don't want to hear the fact of, our team couldn't come out to support us because of the rain. Well, here's the thing. I kept texting you guys during the game. In the fourth quarter, I said, look, there's no fans. And the fans that are there are either in white or they're in navy blue because it was only Penn State fans left. The Pitt fans were gone at halftime. And that's the thing. Pitt cannot recruit as well as Penn State. They don't have as good as fan base because the Pitt fans are usually leaving at halftime. They're going to the restaurants. They're going to eat. They have to go get their overpriced car, that's in a parking lot that's like on the other side of town because the Pirate fans are probably still there, and they just, it was embarrassing. It was
so
embarrassing.
Much hate.
I know, it's
so
very targeted attacks, Rick. These are almost personal.
But it's true. You bragged this game up to the roof, Pitt, and you stunk. Your fans left at halftime. You don't have a good offense.
Well, hold on, Rick. Hold on.
Can't recruit.
They didn't leave at halftime because it was only 14-6.
Did you? I was texting you guys. I said, look, there's yellow seats. Look, there's yellow seats all over the place. Those people never came back. Those people left.
I think you might mean after the third quarter.
No,
after the third quarter. Because at the halftime it was competitive. And after the Pitt continued to play the majority of the game pin deep, which kudos to Penn State special teams for putting them there. But Pitt's running game was running right through Penn State, and I think this goes back to where we talked about scheduling cupcakes. So you have this rivalry game. Penn State had to run the score up because if they kept it close with Pitt, they were it was gonna look poor to the voters when it comes playoff time. That you struggle with Pitt, you struggle with App State, that could be a potential stumbling block. They had to do what they did, and kudos to them for going out there and hanging it up on them.
Rick, what was the bigger win, Pitt or App State?
App State. Pitt.
Hater.
I know, that's such a hater. I knew it was coming.
I'll say this. At the end of the season, App State will have a better record than Pitt.
Well,
Pitt will be lucky right now to get 4 wins.
Rick, I'll be honest. I looked at Pitt's schedule, and that ACC division is awful.
But they're awful. What are they going to do? You already got the book on them. If you're the teams that are coming up in the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th games, what do? Put 8 guys in the box. Go ahead and try to beat us, Pickett, because you couldn't beat Penn State's defensive backs. And you got to think, Penn State's defensive backs, 3 out of the 4 starters of last year are gone. They're in the NFL. I mean, they're gone. So you had a backfield that's a young defensive backs. We lost 2 guys on the defensive line, and you still, how many new starters and everything are there? I mean, a lot of new starters. And the other thing is, they couldn't shut down the run. McSorley didn't have a great game. He had a good game, not a great game. They couldn't shut down the run. And the other thing was, and if they have that punter still out there, I know we talk about this all the time, punting and special teams. Their punter was punting average of 35 yards. I could go right now in that rainstorm that we're having in Pennsylvania and probably go kick a 35-yard punt into my neighbor's yard. I mean, you can't punt.
Well, Rick,
and that's 35 yards before the return.
Winds.
Before the return. Oh, the winds weren't that bad. It was raining.
To help your kick.
Oh, my kick's still going to be in the same exact weather it's been in the past couple of days here. Come on.
Rick, I will say you're right. Their special teams was awful. And Narduzzi, what happened to the innovation from the win a few years ago where he was running shovel passes? Even last year, he just kept running the shovel pass over and over, and it had to be giving Penn State fans fits. After halftime, he made no adjustments.
No. He made none. That was the problem. Penn State
I think the big issue with that was that punter for Pitt. He had the bad hold on field goals, so it limited their scoring opportunities. And then he goes out and shanks a couple punts too. It just, my dad was furious. Wanted to send him back to Australia.
Yeah, I bet he didn't take that loss too good. I don't even know, because I look at Pitt's schedule, Rick, and they were competitive against Penn State. They can be competitive in almost every one of their games. They don't play. The Notre Dame game doesn't count in conference. So they have what? They play Georgia Tech, not good. If they lose to the Tar Heels, that's embarrassing because they just got throttled by ECU. They play UCF, a beat down for Pitt. Will that game count? Nope. They play Syracuse, winnable. Notre Dame, probably a loss, doesn't count. Duke, that's going to be...
UCF's going to give Pitt fits, though.
UCF's going to kill them.
You have to go to UCF. You have to go. You got to get on a plane and go to Florida.
Is it? I thought it was in Pittsburgh.
No, it's in Florida. Have fun. You're losing.
Oh, Pitt's going to get destroyed. Didn't you see UNC had them scheduled, and when the hurricane hit, they're like, no, we're just canceling. We're not playing you guys. Did you see us get killed by ECU? Nah. And then Pitt has a good chance to kill them. So it really comes down to Duke, Virginia Tech, Wake Forest, Miami. Like, who's good? Virginia Tech? Miami? Miami lost. They got throttled. They're not any good. Virginia Tech's really the only team, but we don't know how good they are because Florida State just went the distance with Samford. Not Sanford. I guess I can shift this into the ACC talk. I mean, is the ACC football fallen off that much since Clemson's been running recruiting? I don't even know what to think. Matt, what are your thoughts?
Well, I don't know. It's frustrating, but I think when you look at what Sanford was bringing to the table in that Florida State game, the issue that I have is the consistency with the offensive line, because they knew going in Florida State did not have any offensive line talent or depth, I should say. They were paper thin, and they already have two starters that are down right now off that. So they're in the middle of juggling, trying to figure out some level of consistency. And plus, adding to that, they're going from Jimbo Fisher's pro-style offense, where a lot of these guys were already recruited, and they're trying to take these round pegs and jam them into square holes in Taggart's Gulf Coast offense. So I think there's a really big learning curve, and one of the things that I see that's pretty big is that when you're switching to this style of offense, they're putting a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and I think Francois seems to have a hard time identifying when to pull the ball, when to keep it. He looks hesitant to run, which, given his knee injury, I can kind of see that being an issue. If you're basing your whole offense on that, then it's going to be tough to get things going. And I think you're seeing just the growing pains of adjusting to the offense. In the meantime, I think you're looking at a lot of turnover within the ACC, with Lamar Jackson leaving at Louisville, and some of the other turnover that you're having in the ACC. It's going to look sloppy in the short term, especially going to the other point of how so many teams are now going to a spread. There's people that are cherry picking these offenses. Other than Georgia Tech running a pure triple option, you're seeing variations of a spread. So Syracuse is running it, Tech's running it, Bronco Mendenhall's doing it in Virginia. You're seeing the only real pro style is probably Miami with Mark Richt, that he was running at Georgia forever. So I think that's kind of there. The early part of the year, I think it's sloppy, but over the long, I think they'll get their act together by the end of the year and be able to field some competitive games.
I think the big thing I was hoping that we'd get to see this week was NC State against West Virginia. I mean, the Big 12 was really going to have a showcase weekend where you take NC State, a team that looked like it was on the rise last year. I know they lost a lot to the NFL, against West Virginia, a team that could really push them. And, I mean, that could have been a blowout in West Virginia's favor. Now with the Hurricane, it's out. The big interconference matchup now was Ohio State and TCU. And really, the Big 12 would have had a chance to showcase itself against what's considered to be two contenders, Ohio State in the Big Ten and NC State in the ACC. Because really, it's Clemson now, and that's it in that division. NC State could be. I know they're 2-0. They didn't look good. NC State has not looked good. I mean, Clemson, they struggled with A&M. That could have just been Jimbo Fisher carrying over a lot of his notes. There was some controversy at the end of that game with an out-of-bounds call or whatever. And you had a chance to win. You just couldn't get it done. I don't know. So it's going to be a big thing. I did have one other random thing. Forbes put out their most valuable college football teams, and normally it's Texas and everybody else. Texas A&M has passed Texas Longhorns for the most revenue in college football, which is almost outrageous because if you live in Texas, everyone was a Longhorns fan for the longest time. That's where you get the money to pay for a Jimbo Fisher.
You can't lose to Maryland.
Yeah. And these are from 3 years ago, Matt, because they don't get reported to the NCAA until they said January. So last year's revenues will be reported this coming January for some reason. So imagine how the Longhorns are going to keep falling, considering they're having two more worse seasons. They had all the hype in 2016, or when did they hire Herman? It was that season, right? Or 2017 last year. So you start to add in these extra seasons. I don't see A&M dropping. And how is that going to sit with Texas fans? Is this enough to get them to jump into the rumored ACC or Big Ten? That's why both of those conferences are sitting there at weird numbers. ACC thought if they lured Notre Dame, they could draw on Texas. Big Ten added Nebraska, thinking possibly they could get Texas and Oklahoma or some other variation. It's well known. Texas is the number one where they were. Now you have A&M coming into the SEC. How would that shift those two power conferences? I mean, academic-wise, I think Texas would fit into either of them. Outside of UNC's cheating scandal and their academic probation, I think both are highly academic conferences. So would this be enough for Texas fans to finally be fed up? And actually, do you think Tom Herman's done? That's the other big question. Because not looking good. Did you see his comments actually before you go? Did you see his comments after the game? He said, "It's really hard to win." Bro, you're at Texas. These are the cupcake weeks. It's not very hard to win against Maryland. Go ahead.
I just think Texas has fallen off so far from the Mac, like the tail end of the Mac Brown years, that if they decide to get rid of Herman, who do you attract? Like, what is attractive about the Texas program in its current state that you would want to risk? Like, you're not pulling in a Jimbo Fisher, you're not pulling in a Jim Harbaugh, you're not pulling in a Les Miles for one of those. Like, that's a complete rebuild from the ground up. And if you are in the Les Miles mold, and you're going to try to bring in a pro style offense with what's been running as an air raid or spread offense, that's going to set you back even more so than trying to go from pro style to go from spread to pro style is going to be much more difficult than doing it the other way.
They had a chance when they brought in Tom Herman to go after Chip Kelly or I don't think he was coaching at that time, or he was kind of toying with coming back. I know we talked about on the show, he had his show clause or whatever. They had a chance with Les Miles, and instead they went with Strip Club Tom, and hasn't really worked out. I don't even know. Like, they went for the younger, hotter coach, and you're right. Some schools can pull big name guys in, whether it's an alum like Harbaugh with Michigan. Urban Meyer had previously coached for Earl Bruce, so Ohio State's able to get him. Texas is always rumored to get these big guys. When have they ever pulled in a big name coach? Not in my lifetime. Mac Brown came from North Carolina, not a football power. So it's not like he lured in a coach from even like a parallel jump, like A&M pulling in a Jimbo Fisher from Florida State. That's kind of unprecedented, to be honest. And I just don't see Texas doing it. Are they really going to value the money and try to do a conference grab? Because I don't think the Longhorn Network is going to be re-extended with ESPN having to make all their cuts. So that revenue is going to continue to drop because they were getting however many millions a year for basically a channel that no one watches on ESPN called the Longhorn Network. I don't even know if people remember that even exists. That was a 10 it was like a 10-year deal.
But I also wonder this. What right now, because of the money that they're generating, Texas can still be a big fish in the Big 12 because of the amount of money that they're pulling in. If they were to transfer to any other conference, do they still attract that same level of clout? Because they're not really bringing, like, they go into the ACC, the only thing that they're going to bring is the money. They're not bringing, what are they contributing as far as the athletics? Because Florida State's, we got softball on lockdown. Clemson has football right now.
If Texas fans hear this, they're going to be so mad that you would even throw that at them. I don't even know. They are, well, that would be, 100 plus stadiums. They still have 100 plus. I don't know if they're in the contraction phase like a bunch of other teams. But that would be the only school in the ACC with over 100,000 stadium? You're basically bringing the whole state of Texas into your conference, much like the SEC did. The SEC brought A&M in, and they embraced it, basically putting all these ads out that A&M and the SEC is Texas. And Longhorns were like, no, we have that on lockdown. No, you don't. No, you don't. So how are you going to get that? It's not by playing Oklahoma once a year at the state fair or whatever you play them. You don't even play them at home. What other team in the Big 12 is going to fill your stadium? Kansas? Nope. Iowa State? Nope. Kansas State? Nope. West Virginia? Probably not. Nope. TCU? No, that's a small Christian school. Nope. What big school do they play? No one. At least in the ACC, you're going to have the Florida States, that weird Notre Dame contract. You're going to get them in. Who else? Virginia Tech, maybe. Clemson, yes. And in the Big Ten, you're going to get back your old buddy Nebraska, Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State. It's just better. You're going to have teams that push that national needle. You can't tell me Texas is happy with sitting back, watching the teams get picked for game day, A&M and Clemson. Oh, what's another primetime game? Oh, Michigan, Notre Dame. Oh, wait, what's this other conference rival game? Oh, big Ohio State, Michigan. That's going to be everyone's going to bid on that one. That's the first picked game. Red River rivalry with Oklahoma? Fox will pick that, 20th? They went down, literally Fox went down when they did their contract and picked all the Big Ten games first. That's why you're seeing the revenue drop. And that's what I'll end it with. I really don't have anything else. I just wanted to bring that in. I'll tweet that out. I will go around one more time for the final bell. I personally don't have anything, so we'll start with you, Rick. What do you got?
Oh, I got some things. So my video of the week, I actually watched this. It happened a couple days ago. Spencer Keybom of the Washington Nationals actually spits out a tooth after hitting a home run. So you could actually see him celebrating toothless in the locker, in the dugout. So it's a little bit different that way.
Wait, how did he break it?
They didn't say how.
He just had it in his mouth for a couple weeks?
I don't know, but he broke it, and you could see him spitting it out as he's crossing home plate. Also, another video to watch, you can watch Bryce Harper being a part of the grounds crew. So I guess the Nationals are that desperate nowadays. They actually need Bryce Harper to work on the grounds crew now, too. So one thing I got to see Josh Donaldson do a rehab. So you should watch those videos. So he has a couple nice hits. And I think this is still going to be my pick right now. I think I'm going to take the Indians to win the AL. I think I'm going to pick them before we make the playoffs. I think the Indians have enough firepower right now. So it's made the Red Sox and Yankees nations both mad about that trade, but I like the Indians. So, and I know we always make jokes about LSU and we make jokes about Pirate prospects never panning out. Well, here's a combo for you. Zach Van Rosenberg, if you remember him, he was a top 10 prospect back in like 09, 10, 12, somewhere in there. He's actually the punter now for LSU. So former Pirate prospect pitcher, now to punter with LSU. So if you're watching LSU and you're like, why the heck do I remember that name? It's because he's the punter. Or he used to be a starting pitcher in the Pirates single A system, never made the double A. So, and the last one, I will say this, it's actually my brother's birthday. So happy birthday, Chris. I know you'll watch this because you usually do, then you make fun of me the next day. So, but happy birthday to my brother.
And that's it for TMZ Rick. You get all the birthdays, grounds crew updates, find out who Serena's dating next week when you tune in. But Rick, I'll say this. Pitt Panthers had that guy. They couldn't even find a punter in their own backyard. Jesus, he was practicing how many yards away from the stadium? And he has to go all the way to LSU. Pitt Panthers needed a punter. They should have brought him in.
He's originally from LSU. He's from Louisiana originally. So
makes sense. All right.
So he went home. All
right.
Well, I guess that's what happens when you get released out of your minor league contract. You get sent home.
True. Plus, why would you want to stay anywhere near the Pittsburgh Pirates? But Matt, go with you. What do you got this week?
We're just dogs on the road, trying to continue our win streak, and on the road over at Shannon Valley. So hopefully we can continue. Underdogs.
Damn, I thought you guys were favorites this week.
Nope, we're always the underdogs. So,
all right. Well,
if you're in the area, come on out. Back on the road, long bus rides. I hate the bus, but life of the high school coach, riding the cheese.
Well, all right, that's it for us this week. Thanks for listening. You follow us at Southbound Sports on Instagram, Facebook. We also put these up on YouTube. I mentioned it earlier in the show. Subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you have podcasts, you can find us. If you don't find it on yours, send me an email. I'll get it added. contact@southboundsports.com. Check us out on Twitter, SBound Sports, and we will see you next week. Thanks for listening.